Hello everyone. So I discovered my after the event response to trauma is to freeze, but not quite in the way you may think. This is just one of the insights I gained from the flooding of my home and the subsequent packing up of my life and my house. This watershed moment, no pun intended, had me salvaging, evacuating, packing, discarding, washing, and washing. And yes, I was assisted. I had my 2 children and a dear of helpers to help me. But 2 weeks later, when everyone had left to get on with their lives, I was still very busy washing mud out of my stuff and deciding what exactly I needed for the life of a nomad. But I wasn't really doing the important things, like work or giving the forest fairy any attention. I just could not focus long enough or even just sit in front of my laptop without suddenly remembering something that needed to be sorted or washed. It wasn't as if I was lying on the couch. Not that I had one, but I was ignoring one of my fundamental values, financial stability. I could get away with it as I was a consultant who worked remotely and was not bound to an office or a company, but it couldn't go on like that. Otherwise, I would truly be homeless. And so I began my research. Just a quick reminder, I'm not a qualified medical practitioner of any sort, and I suggest that you seek professional assistance if you are worried about any of your symptoms. Join me as I share this uncomfortable truth about myself and talk about the other trauma or stress responses. Just maybe you will recognize what your default response is. You'll see I've recorded most of this video out in the open one morning in Namibia on a nomading road trip to a wedding. So I apologize for the sunglasses. It was extremely bright and very hot, and for the very basic recording. But I've also included some beautiful visuals of the stark and unusual landscape, which I hope will make up for that. I'm the Forest Fairy. Welcome to my corner of the woods, where I'm rebuilding, revamping, redesigning a magical life and hopefully inspire you to gather your own fairy dust. So I looked at the trauma responses. You know, the stress and trauma responses that we know, it's the flight, fight, or freeze are the 3 main ones. And these responses typically happen when you're involved in a situation where you need to react immediately and it's for your survival. Living in Africa, the good example is coming face to face with the lion. Maybe not such a good example, that it would never happen in South Africa. Lions, contrary to all the myths, lions do not roam around freely in our country. In fact, if you do happen to come face to face with a lion, it means you were foolish enough to get out of your car at one of the reserves. And nowadays, those situations the stress can be caused by heightened work stress or heightened relationship stress or extreme bad regular traffic. The flight, and freeze responses are physiological responses that when you perceive there's a danger or threat, and they originate in the primitive part of your brain. It prepares your body to react. So it may increase your heart rate, it may increase your alertness. Namibia is definitely a bucket list destination, and one that I've been privileged to visit about 6 times. It's just over 800,000 squared kilometers and very sparsely populated. In fact, there are only 2.1 million people living there. Our first stop was the Eyes Resort at the Fish River Canyon. This canyon is the second largest canyon in the world and hosts a legendary 86-kilometer hike. Moi has done this very tough yet incredible hike twice. My memories are of sand and sand, boulders and boulders, as well as lots of stars and many laughs. When I looked at these, I began more to understand my behavior after the flood. The flight response is when you say, I've got to get out of here. You're anxious, you're overwhelmed, you're a bit spaced out, and there's the urge to flee. You can also just watch Netflix, do social media, anything that takes you away from the situation. The fight response is the urge when you say it's your fault, and it's the urge to fight, to become angry, to be aggressive, to blame others. The freeze response is when you also panicky and you're overwhelmed and you feel also a bit spaced out and you just cannot do anything. You just cannot move forward. And these are the three responses. There are two others that I've discovered. There's the friend response, is help me, is when you don't take responsibility for your own situation and you're looking to someone to help you or to give you a solution. The other one is fawn, is when you say it's my fault. When you say just to please others, you take responsibility and you just want others to be happy. When I looked at this, I realized I do have a combination of the responses, especially in the initial phase, but my long-termish response was freeze. I just could not get myself together to focus on the important things. So I needed to figure out, how do I unfreeze? How do I melt? How do I get myself to take one step in front of the other, especially with regards to work? First thing I did, went to visit my sister and I sat on her stoep, her veranda. I needed to connect and I needed to find my center. I needed to align to my values again. I needed to align to God. These were my stillness practices. I did breath work, I did prayer, I did meditation, and I will in another conversation we'll talk about those more in detail, how they help me and how important they were. I also did a lot of grounding, but I walked a lot. I walked a lot barefoot in the garden, just my sister's garden. I just hardly ever wore shoes. Have a look at my grounding video. It tells you all about why I think grounding is so important, and I really got an opportunity to put that into practice. From eyes we took the scenic route to Windhoek, stopping at a roadhouse on the way. Here I discovered, and not for the first time, that many Namibians are very creative and are artists that use the unusual mediums that are available to them. Along the way, we also stopped for a beer, and this was the most delicious one I have ever tasted. The heat probably contributed to the deliciousness. Only 40% of the roads in Namibia are tarred, with most of the rest being well maintained. Even so, we had a flat tire. I know how to change a tire, but I was very grateful for the sun, as I'm not strong enough to loosen the nuts or pick up the tire and put it in the boot. So once I got to quieten down my mind, my heart and my body, I could then really connect to my energies. At 3 o'clock this morning, I woke up and I thought, I want to tell you about this response I had. This is what's happening if you're not focusing on your work or on important things. It's you may have the freeze response. So I jumped out of bed this morning, wrote my notes. I know a millennial will really laugh at that, but I'm not so good at just speaking off the bat. And obviously the background isn't brilliant and there's no lighting except the natural light. But I just thought, I need to make this video. I need to tell how I got rid of my freeze response. This is my 2 or 3 steps forward, getting my life into alignment. And I sat on the stoep in the African dark, the pre-dawn, that dark, just before the birds started, and I started writing the notes that I wanted to tell you. And I felt the energies really flowing back to me. As the dawn came up, a troop of baboons came down, and I was a little bit more careful. I took my stuff inside because they tend to come for food and they are not afraid at all. But by that time I'd finished, and I thought, later today I get myself out there and I'm going to do this video. I'm really hoping this has inspired you or just made you aware that go and look what your response is and how you can handle it. Whether it's the anger response or the flight response or the fawn response or also the freeze response. See if you can sort of just grow in that area. It was wonderful talking to you again. Keep a look out on the conversation that are coming. Have a look at the grounding video. It will be up here. Have a look at that. And until next time, just listen to what your body is telling you. There's always something interesting going on. And I'll see you next time.